fade in on the Knight Rider as he attempts to narrate himself into existence. Let's see if this. Yes. Audio seems to be working. Hello out there. Welcome to episode. I'm going to say 4. I should have looked that up. I think it's 4. I think episode 4 of The Knight Rider. The Knight Rider is... Uh-oh. I turned off my mute. Apologies. In case you're new, the Knight Rider is a... I'm Eppidiah Ravishall, and I am a tabletop role-playing game designer, and what I'm doing here is I'm attempting to live stream the design of a tabletop role-playing game, which is not an easy feat. It's something that I'm not trying to brag about what I'm doing here, but it's technically, if you want to watch actual tabletop role-playing game design, I'd have to have like drones around me all the time, in like embarrassing situations and whatnot, because usually the ideas they come unbidden, and not necessarily when you're just sitting in front of a computer or a live studio audience such as yourself. But we're gonna do what we can here. I'm gonna do a little recap. I think I did set up a recap last time. I got a little previously on. I don't know if this is actually... I didn't update this. Sorry. It's been 2 weeks. I forgot how all of this works. But this is what we are doing here. We're going to make a role-playing game. The initial concept is a toy that we're saying came out in the late 70s called the Intergalaxians. This is a toy of space warriors who have their various limbs and parts are interchangeable. They can come on and off. And this toy has a long and storied history that is all entirely pretend. This doesn't exist. Where it first is a toy, and then it's a comic, and then it's a cartoon, and then it's kind of fades from existence for a bit, and then it's rebooted a few more times, just to follow the pattern that a lot of the toys and whatnot that I have nostalgia for followed. Last time, we built up some things. We had some ideas of how things could work, but I was hitting kind of a wall. I don't know how evident that was while we were doing it, but there's nothing so far. Like, I like the idea. I really like the Intergalaxians. I like the concept of this history, but there's nothing that's grabbed me and said, this is what your story is going to do or how it's going to be. So I gave myself some homework last time, which was 2 weeks ago. And this is indicative of how I deal with homework. I did not do it. In fact, I changed the entire... we'll get into that. So the homework that I gave myself was to come up with some actual Intergalaxian toys, like the first set of toys that came out. I said there were going to be 6 of them, and like 3 of them were the good guys, and 3 of them were the bad guys, and maybe a couple vehicles or whatever. And I sat down and I tried to like figure out what I wanted these to be, and I realized that the toys I was envisioning are maybe a little more intricate than what I actually want, and also they're going to lead to they're the seed of what we're going to do here. So the more elaborate that seed is, the more it can trip us up later on. Like I wasn't seeing a clear way to a game quite yet. Then, out of the blue last night, I was thinking about this problem and realizing that this was coming up, and I still hadn't come up with our good guys and bad guys and whatnot. And I thought about a toy that maybe you remember this. I don't know what the age group is here, but Muscles, the Muscle. I think. Okay, hold on. I think I can remember what they stand for. Not from my own youth, but like I recently looked it up. I think it's like mighty unusual or millions of unusually sized creeps lurking everywhere or something like that. Look them up. Muscles toy. Yeah, the little pink guys. Yes. So they're these. I wish I had some. Yeah, I got a story to tell you about Muscles. Hold on. They're these little pink dudes that just. I think there was like hundreds of them. They were just wacky, wild, lots of different shapes and forms, all roughly the same size. You bought them, at least in the States, you could buy them by the garbage can. There was like a clear soda bottle size or soda can size garbage can full of them. Or you can buy them in like packs of 3 or 4. And it was random, right? You get them and they'd be random. And they popped into my head, and there was just something about these, and like a bunch of other. I don't know if you remember Battle Beasts or just these smaller toys that they weren't all that well articulated, and just instead of having like a half dozen well-defined characters or a dozen well-defined characters, they just had hundreds of them that were. They just went wild with the character design. I'm going to get into what I want to do with this game, but I want to reminisce a little bit about Muscles because I actually wish I had some to show you. I don't, because I was in a battle of the bands in the 90s. I was very bad. Our band was made up of 2 musicians and then myself, and I am not a musician. And while on stage, as part of our stage act, we just threw all of my muscles into the audience. So I don't have them anymore, which I'm sad about now because I wish I did have them. All right, so what does all of this mean for our game here? Why change this? Or does it matter that I change this? So I'm going to scroll down where I have my homework. That's weird. I think that's stuff that I put in there at the end to tell people how to get to things. All right. Yeah, it is a great reason not to have them. It's honestly, like, the story sounds really cool. It was not a cool night. We were booed off stage, but that's neither. Well, a lot of cool things happened that night, but our performance probably was not one of them. All right, so these 6 action figures, 3 good ones, 3 evil ones, and the play sets. This is very nostalgic for me. This fits into like how a lot of toys were marketed to me when I was a kid. But what I want to do is I want to just gonna go ahead and drop that, and we'll go here. We've got a giant assortment of random arms, torsos, heads, and lower bodies, right? So what I'm going to say is these Intergalaxians, these warriors that were shot out into space with the interchangeable parts, they're, I'm doing the math here quick, 5 distinct parts to each one of them. There's a torso, and this torso has attachments, a little attachment port for a head, for 2 arms, and a lower body. We talked, Judd, you brought up, I guess a couple episodes ago, like scorpion tails, and it made me realize that, like, oftentimes the neat lower body is going to actually, or you wouldn't have like 2 separate legs. You would have like the lower body of a scorpion, or tank treads, or, a rocket, something like that. So you have the torso, you plug the head, the 2 arms, and the lower body into it. All of these would be, there'd be no moving parts. It would just be like where they attach to the body. They could maybe move the arms up and down or whatever. I don't know why this is important. It's like when you're going to role play, you're actually going to role play moving parts and like full articulation or whatever. But for some reason, it was important for me to do this. There's no paint involved. They're solid, a solid plastic color. They could be pink like that. But actually, what I want to do, and actually, I'm going to put this here. There we go. I want the idea was if this toy existed, it would be sold in bags of parts. Like you would just get, you could either buy like, let's say a bag full of like, 24 parts, which may be arms and a mixture of all of them. And you could make the characters you want from that. Or they would be like little blister packs of like 3 or 4 characters that were pre-made that maybe had names, right? So we don't avoid the idea of having to make some named characters because you can't make a comic book without some named characters. But the original idea is just to get the parts and throw them together. And then what the toy company would do is that it would have molds for these. And then it would do them all in one color, and then they would go and release them in new colors, and then they would release them with glow-in-the-dark colors, and then they would release them with, like, skunk and gasoline-scented, all the scratch and sniff scents that we all loved as a kid. So you would have the same line of toys, but just released with, like, a different attribute to the chemically plastic thing that they're made up of. So let me just write that down. Greetings. Oh, got a first-time chatter. Fictive fun. I should check out the chat here. Hold on. Yes, Micronauts. Judd says, I'm reminded of the Micronauts and their magnetic limbs. I had Baron Karza, had no idea who he was, but he was always the big villain in my action figure play. Yeah, the Micronauts were a huge influence on this. I both like the the toy, and also I really enjoyed the comic, even though the two really don't really have a whole lot to do with each other. But the history of the Micronauts is very much an influence here. Joe says the great baddie everyone wants can only be got through mixed blind boxes. Yeah, so I have an idea for this. Let me get to that idea. Hold on, let me just type this in. This is good. If I'm excited enough that I can't keep up with my typing, then that's fine. Yeah, watch my terrible typing. Enjoy that. I hope you do. All right. So, hello, Seaworm. Welcome. Yes. So here's an idea, right? Now we have what we know the makeup of the body to be, right? So let me... All right, so now we know that there is a head, torso, right arm, left arm. This is just a very exciting litany here. I'm going to call lower body. Don't really have a good name for that. What's the thorax? Is that on an insect? Is that the back part of it, or is that more of the upper body part of it? I should look that up. That might solve this problem here for technical terms. Anyways, so we can put things here like the head could have our knowledge, history, experience, that sort of thing, and of course we can the right arm and as well as the skills. Prowess is a great word. I'll use that as often as I possibly can. Same thing here for the left arm. Why not? Maybe we'll find a distinction between the two later on. Lower body would be movement. Let me get this more to the middle here. Movement and well, hello, pseudo orc. So so these would cover like our basic attributes, however we want to do it. But I ignored torso here because I want to do something with torso. I want the torso to embody the values, like probably also something about armor, because these are going to be fighting. We're going to have a lot of fun fights with these things. So we get to divide the characters. We get to take a part of a character that doesn't normally get interchangeable like that and make it interchangeable. We could take the head, which has like the knowledge and the history and the experience of the character, but the torso has the character's values, right? Their heart and what they, believe or whatever. And so the personality of the character might be something between the interactions between the two of those. There's ways we can mechanically do this, which I'm kind of excited about. For example, if you're familiar with Apocalypse World, which I think if you're currently watching this, you have it's a good odds that you are. There's the read the situation read a situation move in Apocalypse World. Let me explain in case you've stumbled upon this on YouTube and don't know what Apocalypse World is. Look it up, first of all. It's well worth looking into. But read a situation is a move in the game that you could do to kind of decide or figure out what's happening in the world around you, right? You roll two dice, you add a value to it, and you look on a chart and it tells you what you can do with that. Like you're going to have some questions you get to ask. I actually don't know off the top of my head what the current Apocalypse World read the situation is. I can tell you that it's my favorite part of Apocalypse World is how this mechanic works. And I eventually hacked it into Wolfspell here. And the way I did that was just... there's something very powerful about in the read a situation move. You roll and it gives you questions you're allowed to ask. And the framing of those questions tells you a lot about the character and what the character can do or how the character perceives the world, right? So in Wolfspell, you roll the dice if you're going to behold the world, if you're going to, figure out what's going on in the world around you. You're playing a character who is a human who has turned into a wolf. You roll the dice to see who's in control, your wolf side or your human side. And depending on the result of that roll, the questions you're allowed to ask are either going to be very goal-oriented, strategic human questions, like who's in charge here, what's most valuable here, that kind of thing. But if you get the wolf side of it, then the questions you ask are all based on the senses of the wolf. So instead of asking sort of analytical questions, you're instead asking questions like, what does my nose tell me? Or what can I hear? And it puts you in a different mindset each time, or at least it forces the character to to perceive the world through a particular mindset. So, all right, I'm on a real big tangent here, but what I find exciting about this with respect to the Intergalaxians is that you can have an Intergalaxian head with like a telescoping neck and binocular eyes, right? There's definitely a He-Man character that has that, but I can't remember his name offhand. But so you have this head, this just weird bit of plastic, and you slap it on a torso. But that head, the telescoping neck, and the binocular eyes can give you bonuses to perceive things, bonuses to your roll to see how many questions you can ask or get answered. But the questions you're allowed to ask all come from your heart, all come from what you value, all come from the torso that you choose for the character. So we can do fun things like that to make the way these two bits interact and form kind of an interesting personality thing. Because also we're saying that the head is going to have all your history and your experience, but like what you're going to do with that and how you're going to go forward with that is going to be based on your values. All right. Barfed a lot of that out there. I apologize. But I'm not saying I'm going to do this all like Apocalypse World style, but Apocalypse World is, I find, a nice framework to lay out your thoughts if you don't have anything to put your thoughts on, like I don't at the moment. Like I don't have a framework, I don't have a mechanic to work with here. So I often will, while I'm designing a game, if I need to, lay it out on that just to. There are other games I do that with it too, but it's good. I mean, it's really good for that. It's good for getting you to thinking about what it is you want from what's happening, or at least that's been my experience. So shout out to Megan Vincent Baker for Apocalypse World. Anyways, we were talking about the big bad. All right, so let's. Got the Intergalaxian body composition, but I want to say something about death and dying here, because that's an important spot in every role-playing game. Intergalaxians, I think it actually will. No. Intergalaxians are... I'm trying to think of the word here. Invulnerable? Yes. Which body part holds the soul? Well, we can get to that, actually. Intergalaxians are... No. That's one. Cannot die. All right. They just cannot die. But they can be blown apart, and they're all right. Intergalaxians can't die, but they can be blown apart and scattered to the five corners of the universe. So, initially our idea was you've been shot out of these sort of human torpedo tubes, which, by the way, might be a great way to sell these, like little plastic snapping tubes that you can put them in and then they get fired out. And these were intended to hit a ship many light years away, and then you would bust out of the torpedo tube and take over the ship. That was this space warfare of the heyday of the Intergalaxians. And then, of course, that whole civilization and all the civilizations it knows disappears from the universe, right? But there are some shots that you take that are missed, and so some Intergalaxians just kept traveling through the void for years and years and years, and literal light years as well. And then the game starts far into the future, where they have come out of their space torpedo, their star torpedo hypersleep or whatever, and have to figure out what to do with themselves, right? So that was our initial idea for what you'd be playing in this. But it's also possible for there to be Intergalaxians who have been alive since the war and have just been scattered. In particular, if there were good Intergalaxians and bad Intergalaxians, or without even thinking good or bad, there's just, well, we want a big bad guy, right? So what if there's a big bad guy that was so powerful that a bunch of Intergalaxians had to intercede and fight him, and then tear him apart and scatter him throughout the whole galaxy thousands of years ago, and now he's trying to reassemble himself, and maybe he only has his head, but he's using the heads and parts from other Intergalaxians that he's taken along the way, and is trying to reassemble the original body that he had. I think that makes a good villain piece for the original comic and original cartoon that would also travel outward. But also, I just really like the concept of evil space villain whose head has all of his experience and memory, but his torso has all his values. And he doesn't have his torso yet. So he knows he's trying to get his whole body together, but sometimes he's getting torsos with values that aren't evil. And so sometimes he's just, has that capability, is still trying to do this, still trying to pull the whole thing together, but owns other thoughts, right? Owns other feelings or wants other things from the world because of that. And also, I would love for players to be able to play something like this. And so this is what I'm excited about. This is where I don't know how I got from muscles to here, but there was something about reducing that toy down to this very easily manufactured and sold, or much more easier thing that kind of put that in my head. So we're going to get to some here because there's a lot of stuff coming out on the chat here. Yeah. Judd suggested right arm skills, prowess, left arm cunning and ambush. Yeah. I mean, that's actually, let's go ahead and there's there was this old, there was, this whole thing, way back in the day, there was a website. I don't remember much about it, but I remember it showing off how D&D through the ages and through the editions. This was 3rd edition D&D at the time, I think. But D&D through the ages said the same things about elves and goblins, but the way they said it about each of them, elves were cunning enough to lay a trap, whereas goblins couldn't be trusted because they would always lay traps for you. It was very there could be something going on there with how we deal with the right and left arm. I am myself not a lefty, so maybe I shouldn't do. I'm not not left-handed, I should say. So maybe I shouldn't. Although my brother is, I can talk to him about that. Yeah. So exactly, a lot of society was at a time trying to push people towards right-handedness, and where was I? Yeah, Joe enjoys this. And Fictive Fun asks where they carry their burdens. That's a good question. I mean, this might be a good one for the lower body. I mean, you should always lift with your legs, right? There is something, I think, with this left and right where, well, I might not actually make a distinction so much between left and right arm because the arms themselves are going to have some distinctions. Thinking about physically, most of the arms won't make a. Well, okay. Here's another bit. The One of the things I want to do here is when it comes to assembling bodies, for some reason, when I first envisioned this last night, I thought to myself, okay, so there's probably like a little. I was really kind of deep into the mechanics of the physical object, right? Like I wanted to know how do they snap together or whatever. Is it like Lego or is it like oh man, I can't think of the toys I had where it's like just like a ball and socket kind of joint thing. And I was like, oh, well, the arms will go on a ball and socket kind of joint, but maybe the head goes on a different. And then I realized, no, they should all have the exact same way of attaching. And so the question isn't like that way. If somebody wants to make a character that has 3 arms and no head, let's let them do that. Like that, like. Let's have some rules for what happens when you play a torso without a head. So the idea, maybe I should put this up here. I have this urge to just speak out loud what I'm typing, which I probably shouldn't do because anyways, I'll get to it in a second. Ugh. All right, so the torso, I think, would be the thing that everything plugs into, right? And I think the idea is that the only thing that makes me slightly hesitant about that is that maybe giving the torso a chance to plug into the head the same way an arm plugs into the torso means we can do fun things where you just have a head on a lower body or a head on an arm. But then you don't get like 3 arms. Now, okay, everything just plugs into the torso. Let's keep it simple. And I want it to be utterly playable to do these sort of wild things. If you were like, hey, I like the rocket body, but I also like the lower body of the rocket, but I also like the scorpion lower body. So let me just put that rocket on the top of the head instead of the head on the top of the torso and the scorpion body on the bottom, and now you're like scorpion rocket. And also, I want that to be fine because that's exactly the kind of thing we would do as a kid, right? Like you would try to break the rules of the reality of the world, and I want to make sure that you're not penalized for that. I want there to be something fun that happens there that's not so strong of an attractor that everyone does it. I want it to be different. I want something weird to happen. But I don't want the differentness thing to say, hey, if you don't have a head, then you don't have any skills or anything like that. So that's a thing I'm going to try and keep an eye on as I'm doing this, because I do think this is part of the fun here is going to be like having a right arm with a shield is going to give you a +2 to armor, right? Like just straight bonuses like that, or you know, so there is going to be a lot of just bonuses and the interplay between them there. All right, so some things from the chat here. Let's be careful about ableism. Yeah, I mean, like, there's going to be some pitfalls. There are in any game design, but this is a thing that, like, we're definitely going to have to keep an eye out for. A literal butthead. Yes. See, and honestly, I'm pretty sure there was probably a muscle that was a literal butthead. I'm not familiar with this stick fuzz. I'll have to look that one up. So, does the torso and its color define your identity? Let's talk about the color, right? I think the torso defines your values, but I think your identity might be a combination of things. And I think it's okay that the different characters derive their identity from different things. So I think it would be awesome to have a story where a left arm is such a storied history and such a personality to it that it doesn't matter what body it's on. The left arm is really what sort of drives the identity for that particular thing. I also do like the idea of our villain that I was just talking about before, who's trying to reassemble his old body, like, has an identity that is now scattered across the universe, like has a concept of what, and I think that there should be actually some iconic heroic ones that we think of that are like that, like that their identity is made out of all 5 parts put together, and if they're missing all 5 parts, there's something that has changed about that identity, like something fundamental. See you, Judd. Thank you for joining us. Yes. Oh, yeah. And Joe points out that if everything plugs into the torso, you can never have someone without values, which is pretty cool. So that is very, like, helpful. But the color, right? What's fun about having this, or what can be fun, what we can do with this model is, it's the same shapes over and over again, but in different plastic colors, and some of them glow in the dark, and some of them have, scratch and sniff scents. Some of them might be translucent plastic. We can assign something to that, right? Yeah, I need all my parts to recover all my memories. Yeah, exactly. Something, but we could be like, we could say, oh, the, glow in the dark orange is, the radioactive fire thing. And so you get, like, depending on which part you have that's that glow in the dark orange, you get some sort of thing from that. And so you can have, like, weird upgrades, where you, like, you really like the fact that your left arm is largely just a drill, and then you come across the same thing, but it's the strawberry smelling drill, and which comes with some sort of bonus when it comes. I hadn't thought through what a strawberry scent would give you a bonus to, but I'm sure we'll come up with something. And then you would, you could just, I think if I were a kid playing with these toys and I had a favorite assembly of this character, suddenly getting like a strawberry scented, arm for it, I would take the old arm off and put it in the box and put the strawberry scented one on and just be like, yeah, now you have a strawberry drill. Yes, bonus to fighting pastries. Tauros made me think of minotaurs. Yeah, I honestly, part of the reason why the lower body is one thing and not like both legs or whatever is that there's too many juicy. This is centaur, not minotaur. But there's too many juicy centaur type situations where you give them the lower body of a panther or the lower body of a millipede or something like that. So anyways, the exciting, I think having like this sort of, we could say, here's the drill arm. The drill arm gives you these skills and opportunities and this bonus in combat or whatever. Just a little, tiny little stat block. And then we would have like, and if it's translucent, then it's a ghost drill arm, which means it goes through armor. Or you wouldn't have to write that for each drill arm. You wouldn't have to write that for each type of arm. You could just say all translucent arms gain these bonuses if they are used to attack, and they gain these bonuses if they're used for defense, or they gain this extra skill because maybe they add to your stealth, right? So you might have like a glow in the dark arm and a translucent arm, and one of which is you can use to distract the enemy because of the bright lights or whatever. And the other one, it gives you a bonus to stealth, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to make sense. It could be you just have technically an invisible arm that's a drill, so you can do invisible things with it. So I ignored my homework. I went somewhere else with it, and now we've got these the colors act like tags. Exactly, like a plastic type equals an extra power. Shape is the core ability. That's perfect way to put that. So we have and I think that like where you've got the customization. So there's going to need to be like a level of customization that isn't just putting these parts together. And that since everyone has to have a torso, I think that is, and since that's where the values are going to be, that might be kind of where we start. Like, what do you start with when you make one of these characters? And I think I see. It is, in fact, Toro. That's a typo. I just saw that. Thank you for pointing that out. But the torso, I think, will be where we'll start, and then we'll just add things to it as we go along. Yes, yeah. I too am getting excited about. I'm actually, what I would really love is to wake up tomorrow and just have an old shoebox full of these to play around with. But I'm not making toys here. I'm making a game. So now I'm going to look back on our we've got we're about like 15 minutes left. I'm going to go back and look at our litany of lies here. Let me save this and see what has turned out to be lies and what we can kind of eliminate from our, and what we might want to keep here. So we got the toy line, the early 80s comic book licensee. This stuff is fun. I do like, I'm blanking on who suggested this, but that the edgy 90s comic, is just called I instead of Intergalaxians, because the word Intergalaxian is too cheesy for the 90s, too cringe for the 90s to deal with. If you're new and you're joining just this episode, it turns out that while I've made up each one of these, I specifically hate the 90s reboot of it. That is my own invention, and I don't know why, but I'm just going to keep going in that direction. And yes, we're going to keep the remake that makes the right type of people uncomfortable in the early aughts, the cartoon remake. Okay, so the Intergalaxians are, get that in the middle, Ageless, Star Knight, Lost in the Cosmos, that has forgotten you and your kind. That's good. Question here. Do the Intergalaxians have a life before they gain the ability to dock interchangeables? So that's actually kind of a good question. the probably the default thing that I had going in my head is the story of Rom, the Space Knight, which was that they were largely a human type species who gave up their, well, yeah, specifically I think they say they gave up their humanity to become Space Knights. So that was like sort of what I had going in my head, but that was before, when I was thinking of these as like half a dozen, or like a dozen different action figures that had these interchangeable things. But now I'm thinking about hundreds of action figures with just wildly bizarre attachments. It's not even hundreds of action figures. It would be, it's a combinatorial problem. But anyways, that leads me to think that what might be fun is if this were just a bunch of species and, robots and cyborgs and like all Star Wars Mos Eisley soup kind of that once this interchangeable technology existed, the Intergalaxian, they're people that fought in these big Intergalaxian wars, that just started replacing limbs as they lost them during the battles, and then eventually ended up these semi-immortal beings because of it. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to go exactly with that because I'm just on the spot thinking about it. But it's a really good question, and one that I want to think about, because that might drive a little bit about what's going on. Like, what do they want to do? I'm going to write this in. It's interesting hooks. Let's put it under there for now. No, those are mechanics. Let me see here. Things to do. Just scrolling through here for you. I apologize. Let me just throw this at the end here. Open questions. It's always good to have some of those. And what else do you hear? I like each iteration would feel the need for their own origin story to the Intergalaxians, with the 90s being unnecessarily grim. Yeah, there's also that, right? Like, I think that there's probably the thing we've been kind of going on, and I see no reason to change it for this new edition here, is that the toy line has little to no narrative other than they're the Intergalaxian space warriors with interchangeable parts. What is it? The incredible interchangeable Intergalaxians. And that's literally all the kids get. And then the comic book comes out. And so that first comic, the origin story that's going to tell is probably going to be the first kind of canon one. And then, yes, definitely the 90s one will find some way to be unnecessarily grim about it and try and change it. And then there'll be fun things in the aughts reboot of the cartoon where it tries to resolve or make fun of some of the things that happened in the 90s. The idea here is to have enough setting options to just kind of suit the needs of each group. And also to find out, like, because it is entirely possible, as as I'm writing this that I'm going to fall down a rabbit hole or just be like that early 80s comic is the only thing I really care about or something like that. I don't think that's the case right now, but yeah. You know what? I actually yeah, making the setting a formal part of starting the game. Yeah, honestly, that would definitely be getting everyone on the same page. That's always kind of a hard thing, because a lot of people, we've been talking about this and we kind of been grooving on these toys here. A lot of us with like a shared experience of similar toys and whatnot. But like, if we sat down and tried to play something at the table, we might have like right now we would have some differences of like what the tone of the game should be, or without knowing it. Like we could all be fans of the same thing, and then when you sit down to play, we're fans of it for different reasons, and play sometimes is really good at exposing that in like a bad way. So figuring out how we're going to get everyone on the same page is going to be part of the challenge of designing this. And certainly having like a thing at the very beginning of the game where you say, this is what I want out of it. Not only like helps people state what they want out of it, but also helps people think about it, because sometimes you leave it unexamined, and it helps you kind of like say, what I really don't want out of this is whatever, and hopefully get people to honor that. Yeah, fan schism is going to be a lot of fun. Like what's the what's the real story behind the origin? Like, 'cause we could leave most of what happened in the distant past murky, and so like, who knows? And like, we're scattering across, well, the whole galaxy. They're the Intergalaxians. Oh no, wait, not inter. So they're scattered across the universe. Right? If they're Intergalaxians, like interplanetary, yeah. Why not? Let's go big. So yeah, there's plenty of opportunity for different corners of the world to just be different, and have a completely different history. Yeah. All right. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing okay on time. We're coming near the end. I was going through this. I was looking to see what we might want to weed out. Yeah, I like that. The recently found one another and an ancient menace. But we're getting into that that old villain. Oh no, the questions are great. Please keep asking the questions. I think that like this, I don't know how I envisioned this whole thing working, but having this interaction is definitely makes better television. So yes, I think most of the universe are non-Intergalaxian people. So the Intergalaxians, although they're the hundreds of parts to assemble in like millions and billions of ways. I should really do the math on that at some point. But yeah, hundreds of parts to assemble in just an enormous number of ways. Still very rare. The one of the going themes early on in this was that they would be kind of lonely and trying to seek each other out. And so most of the world will be made out of non-Intergalaxians, which would allow for stories that run sort of along the same lines as like Seven Samurai and Yojimbo, or the first season. I've only seen the first season of The Mandalorian, so I can't comment on the second one. But like stuff like that, where it's like you end up in a spot looking, or the old Incredible Hulk television show, where you're just kind of wandering from town to town, from planet to planet, and they have problems that it might be useful to have an Intergalaxian deal with. They had to be forgotten by someone. That's true. Yeah, very, very true. All right, so make characters by assembling the parts. So I'm not entirely sure we're going to do deck building. So this one is going to end up with a question mark. Let's. I was thinking about that very early on, that might be kind of fun, but I'm not entirely sure that that's what I want. Yay! Instead of Star Torpedo, how about Capsule? Makes me think of those little toys that come in capsules. In the early 80s, there was a line of Day-Glo non-interchangeable molded pencil erasers, which were spaceships and robots. Some molds in different colors. This reminded me of those a bit. Yeah. Like a capsule is a good word, and you could make a very like a gel cap, like a big gel cap full of them. I keep thinking of it again, like when you got muscles back in the day, they came in translucent garbage cans, which that's the sort of. Honestly, if that packaging, instead of being like translucent, just it was opaque, so you didn't know what was inside. Or maybe it was the same material as the parts were made of. And then you could have like a few different capsule molds as well, which would be kind of fun. So some of them might be sleek, and some of them might be big, like junky looking, trash can looking ones. Each Intergalaxian looks drastically different from any other. Well, yeah, we're there now. We're good. The interchangeables weren't manufactured. They didn't come off an assembly line. Oh, well, so this is interesting. So, originally, again, when I was thinking about doing them as a bigger, more ornate action figure, I was thinking about them. I was thinking about them in this particular context where they didn't have. Some of this is missing from my head. My head's in the way. I apologize. I was thinking about these where they weren't like assembly line built. They were like some artisan had built them, so they were very rare, and you had to find them. But this is different. This has changed. So I'm gonna put, because I do think now it's more a little more, less Knights of the Round Table, a little more Mad Max. I'm not entirely sure yet if that's how we're gonna go, but that feels kind of right. Although, yeah, I mean, I think that you could definitely have stories where you're like, I need. Nobody makes Intergalaxian parts anymore, so you would need to find someone who can repair one, and that might be another Intergalaxian, or it might be someone who just it's been passed down. The secrets have been passed down generations. In their families, and then they have no idea why they need to learn this until they finally meet an Intergalaxian. All of these sound like really cool stories that would occur in the 80s comic book, right? Like, as we think about how all these work. What did I do here? Oh, yeah, removable body parts, yes. Possible classes. Oh, this is the thing I was thinking about early on. that's not necessarily where you would have like this is a nostalgia trip for me, and nostalgia trips often get mixed up with older game designs in my churning imagination. So I was thinking of maybe doing class-based things. This could be based on the torso. I'm not throwing this out yet, so I think that so far is fine. We're about out of time here, so maybe I should stop this little trip through the litany and just catch up on chat, and then we'll say our goodbyes. I will tell people where to find me. I almost caught up here. This could be different eras or factions. What if one faction was very crafted and rare and the other was more grunt built or off-the-wall stuff? This could be Gen 1 versus Gen 2 figures too, or the nostalgia re-release in the 90s. Yeah. And it could just be like a natural result of some of the parts looking like they're makeshift, and some of the parts looking really ornate, and some of them looking like very organic, and some of them looking like they're made out of like wood and hide, and so I think that it's going to lend itself to and that's something we might even mechanically do. It might be kind of fun to be like, hey, if you get this whole set, or all the things that feel this way, then you get this kind of bonus, or they interact with each other nicely, and so you get, I don't know what yet, because obviously we don't have a mechanical thing to put it on, but it might, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Yes. Oh, okay. So I should read this out loud and not silently to myself, because there will be people on YouTube who are wondering. From Unlikely Lass, this is a meta idea, but one class could be immigrant crossover character who is an action figure of a completely different line of the same scale. Yeah, actually, just making playable things that aren't the Intergalaxians is probably a thing we'll want to. If we don't design it, we might backdoor it into it. Sometimes you want to. Sometimes I like to design a little something that I'm like, okay, this is how I think this would be done. I'm going to just leave the hooks and the pieces there for people to do it, but I'm not going to tell them straight out how to do it, because it might take up a lot more pages to describe, or it might be fun for them to discover it or figure it out on their own and kind of work with it. And that feels like an area that might fit into that as well. But I really do like the idea. Just bringing battle beasts into it would be a lot of fun. Sounds like the late 90s movie Small Soldiers. Yeah, actually, I haven't watched that in a long time. Maybe I'll do that as research. That's one of the great things about being a tabletop role-playing game designer. You can watch a movie and call it research. All right, I am going to have to bring this to a close. But before I do, let me save some things. And let me just bring up a new page here. Oh, put it all the way up at the top here. Let me tell you where to find me. First, I should tell you to like and subscribe, because this also goes out on YouTube. I don't know what the Twitch equivalent of that is, but you probably do. Figure it out. If you enjoyed this, that's how you would do it. If you're looking for more content like this from me, I have games. You can find my games at dig1000holes.com. That's my website that I keep meaning to update. And everyone has a website that they keep meaning to update. I also write sword and sorcery fiction, and I have some games there at worldswithoutmaster.com. That's another place to go. My name is Eppidiah Ravishall. Just looking for that name, you can find this is a rather unique name. You're going to find me. In particular, I am talkative on Twitter at Eppidiah. And I should probably double space these things or something. And we're all scared that Twitter is going to go away, so we're also looking at other things. So if you're on the Mastodon, I'm Eppidiah at Dice Camp. I'm pretty sure that's how Mastodon works. And yeah, thank you for joining me. This was a lot of fun. And fruitful. I don't know where we're going next, which is exciting. But we're gonna start getting some mechanics in here soon. So again, let me just awkwardly try and find how I turn all this off. Thank you, and have a lovely evening. Uh-oh, there we go.